It's no secret that Rent the movie didn't do so well. According to the numbers that are available, it lost about $4 million at the box office, and the reviews weren't much kinder, criticizing its wonky direction, flat performances, slow pace, and looking back, pretty outdated humor. And while all of that is true, I think there was an underlying reason that was sort of stemming off into these other issues. There was like a deeper root to the problem, and that's what I want to try to articulate in this video to the best of my ability. If you've been following my channel for a couple months, you know I've been doing a lot of musical movie trailer reactions, so I've been thinking a lot about what makes a good movie musical adaptation. I finally got around to watching the Rent movie. In the medium of filmmaking, stories are generally told in a linear fashion, in a very realistic way. This means that corny dialogue or bad performances stick out like a sore thumb, whereas I think the stage is more likely to forgive these things because just the nature of doing a show on a stage tends to kind of require the audience to suspend belief. I mean, you can't have CGI on stage, so the effects are always going to be somewhat unrealistic. And I'm also not going to go too deep into the fact that Rent is obviously kind of silly. People who are fans of the show probably know even more so how pretty silly it is. If you take it literally, then you think you're watching a story that's telling you to literally not pay your rent, or to do drugs, or kill puppies. I mean, literally one of the most benevolent characters kills a puppy for money and brags about it. But I don't think people walked out of a performance of Rent thinking, alright, I'm gonna go kill puppies for money. I'm gonna go do heroin now. That's obviously not the case. Rent has some kind of a tongue-in-cheek mentality to it. It's meant to feel just kind of freeing and bring light to certain issues that weren't brought to before. The point is, with the movie, these kind of silly elements of the plot are brought out and made to look even more clownish, especially that Chris Columbus, the director, directed in such a dry, straightforward way, with slow transitions, with lines being delivered like the actors were sedated. But with Rent, the musical, the whole thing felt like one big song, like one big poem, and it was meant to kind of feel symbolic. It wasn't meant to be literal. And obviously the characters are deeply flawed, but there's a deeper point being made. So yeah, the movie didn't do so well, and what I want to do with this video is make some comparisons line by line with the stage production, in particular the one that was filmed in 2008. There's actually the whole thing on YouTube for free, and we're going to compare that to the movie version of it. And I just want to show you how totally different certain scenes come off when it's in that dry, desert-like movie form compared to the charismatic, energetic style of the stage. So with that said, let's go into some of those comparisons on why Rent the movie just failed on a directorial level. So in general, the songs feel very out of place. So the intro song, last year's Rent, I don't know what the official name of it is, but you know when that crescendo comes in, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. In the stage version, the characters are introduced, we get an idea of the style of the show, and then it gives us that explosive introduction, and it feels energetic, and it's alive. In the movie form, it sort of just starts abruptly, and we're not on board with the energy. There are a lot of examples of this in the movie. There's a lot of times the movie just does something because it's in the musical, but where if you were to watch the movie without having seen the musical, you wouldn't know why that thing is there. It's not justified. In the song One Song Glory, I think the staging of it is a good example of a mistake that the movie makes. Having it filmed on a rooftop doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. Roger's reminiscing, but I just don't really buy his pain in the movie version. In the musical version, he's isolated, he's trying to write a song, he gets frustrated, he takes the guitar off, and then he starts singing, but he's kind of sitting there thinking to himself for a while as the music is playing, and it's very echoey for a reason. It sort of gives that isolated nature, like he's in a empty warehouse or something. And also the lighting is really good in the musical version. The light's coming at him from a downward angle, so you see the shadow behind him. And honestly, not to get too dark here, but my impression of the song One Song Glory is that Roger's on the verge of suicide by the end of the song. He's singing about how his entire existence is meaningless. He even at the end starts looking at his hands, and remember his girlfriend slit her wrists, and I was thinking oh, is he gonna do the same thing? And then when Mimi knocks, she literally saved his life. That was the impression I got from watching the production. Whereas in the movie, he's singing this on a rooftop, but then what happens is the song ends and his face, I hate to say it, but Adam Pascal just didn't do well in the movie. I just don't buy his expressiveness. He seems bored. He doesn't seem tortured and depressed, and there's a lot of this expression in the movie. This I can't even do it, but this well, what do you want me to do about it kind of mentality. I could do a whole montage of different clips in the movie, but just watch it and notice the amount of times that Adam Pascal or Anthony Rapp does this. That was something I noticed. But then, he finishes, and then he just goes back into his apartment, and it's la-di-da, and then Mimi knocks on the door, and it feels very much like a janky transition. Maureen's performance, I don't think works as well. I think, again, you take it more literally when in the stage production it's shown to be more obviously silly, and Maureen's just an artistic mess I know what that's like. Whereas in the stage production, like, you see the audience and they're like, yeah, that's awesome. And it's like, we're expected to think that she's this brilliant artist. And I don't think that was the intent that, Jonathan Larson had. I think it was supposed to be like trying to show deep ideas with mooing and stuff. Okay, and another song is Take Me or Leave Me. I don't like how in the movie they're singing in front of all their friends and family at the wedding. It feels much more performative when I feel like the song was meant to be more of like an intimate moment where they're finally spilling out their feelings to each other and like, saying what's been needed to be said for as long as they've been together. Like, they're getting out all their baggage. But in the movie, it's just like they're in front of their friends and family. It's awkward. They're standing there just like watching them, and their facial expressions in the background are just like, there's like this deadpan look. You know what it's like when you've been in a high school production and you're, playing the ensemble in the background and you're supposed to just kind of do this the whole time. Except, like, even that's more acting than they did in the movie. But anyway, I didn't really like that. I like the original idea, how they're just with each other. And also, I wanted to point out the dialogue. Rent doesn't have a lot of dialogue, but when it does, it's usually kind of used as a transition into another song. And there's usually background music. So, like, the song never ends. Like, that's why I said earlier, it feels like one big song. But in the movie, they take those scenes of dialogue to try and make it feel very movie-ish and real. And man, some of those lines sound much worse when it's put into that perspective. Like the line, "Zoom in on my empty wallet." It's just, nobody talks like that. The unnaturalness of the lines sticks out more when you try to film it really serious and straight. So, like, for instance, when we meet Benny for the first time, their line of dialogue, "You okay, honey?" That scene where Angel meets Tom for the first time. It's a really nice little mini song in the show, but they say the lines as dialogue in the movie, and it makes it sound, again, like just poorly written dialogue. So there are just some examples. Again, I just think when you put something in a movie form, it's expected to be more realistic. You have one of two choices. You either lean in on the realism and you have to make some rewrites to the dialogue and actually make those scenes make sense, and your other option is to lean into its original intent, which is give it that energetic feel. And the way you do that is by speeding up the pace, first of all, and maybe having those scenes of dialogue actually be sung like they were in the show. But I think trying to do two things at once just didn't work. Now, as I was watching this, I was just shocked by how, just bored I was. Now, in general, the songs weren't that bad. I mean, this is the original cast, so again, I'm not trying to shit on the cast here. It's the original cast. They did do auto-tune, which in my opinion is a good thing for movies to do. The songs sound good, but although a lot of these songs kind of were music videos, the way they were filmed, I thought I was watching like Vivo on YouTube. And yeah, in general, I think the music was its strength, but the dialogue was where the weakness of the movie really came in. I'm trying to actually make a cohesive movie out of a, goofy plot like Rent. So I hope that I made my point make sense at all. I know there's been a lot of a lot of reviews of this movie. It came out 16 years ago. This is not exactly the first review of the movie, and it's pretty well known that the movie kind of sucked. So I just wanted to come at it with a perspective that hadn't been said before. So I hope that made sense. Let me know what you thought of Rent. If you liked the movie, or you disagreed with me in any other way, go ahead and let me know. Go ahead and drop a like if you appreciated this video, and just thank you for watching, most of all. I appreciate you listening to my opinion. Whether or not you agreed, doesn't matter. As long as you hear it and see where I'm coming from, that's all I can ask. Thanks for watching. Keep loving theater, and I will see you next time.